everyone and welcome back to my channel. As you seem to really like my sewing classes with satin, I thought I will see what kind of satin I have still lying on my pile, and I had this beautiful orangey bricky satin. It's a really nice cheerful color for summer or for spring, and I'm gonna make a wrap dress out of it. And I will link down below in the description box my playlist of all the satin classes that I already have made here on YouTube that you can watch back. And also, if you've never sewn with satin before, in many of those videos I give a lot of tips how to sew with satin, because some people find it's difficult to do, and then you can just see what you have to do to make it easier on yourself. And we're gonna make a wrap skirt. I said a dress, I think, and we're gonna make a wrap skirt out of this with pockets on the bottom, and it looks really nice. And before you cut it, make sure you wash it and you iron it. When you iron it from the right side, you get a really nice extra shine. Some satins are not really good to iron from the right side. I have a polyester satin. I almost always use polyester satin. I'm not really a fan of silk satin because it doesn't stay very nice, and polyester satin, and you buy a good quality satin, so not a satin that you use as a lining or something. Really ask for a good quality satin, polyester satin, then you really have nice results, and for a longer time also. And silk will deteriorate rather quick when you live in a rather wet climate or when you cannot store it very well. So I prefer a polyester satin. But wash them, iron them. If you have difficulties iron them on the right side, then iron them on the wrong side, because that is very possible too, but the only thing is that you don't get that extra shine. And well, I'll show you what we're gonna make out of it. I'll make my fabulous drawing again. So this is what the skirt's gonna look like. We have the wrap here in the front, the overlap. Of course, with the ties going all around the waist with a knot. 2 dots in the front, and it will be flared out a little bit so that you get a little bit of move on the hemline. And then for the back we have that same flared out a little bit, and we make some pockets on the back, and it's difficult to draw, but they are give some dimension but not bulk, so they will not be big pockets on the bottom of your skirt, because that doesn't look that nice. But these are really nice pockets. I made them before on a wrap skirt, and they look really nice, and they give you some space. But if you rather have pockets in the side seams, I have a tutorial about that, so you can also do that. Then just leave them out, watch the tutorial, and just make your pockets in the side seams. But I like these very much, so I'm gonna do that. And the back part, of course, has the 4 darts as the basic pattern has. So this will be the skirt. Then for the pattern, you will need your basic pattern for a skirt, and if you don't have that already, I will leave down below the link to my tutorial how to make a basic pattern for a skirt in your own sizing. It's very easy to do, and you can save that for all kind of other projects, so it's not only for this one, it's for all the other skirts you're gonna make. And it's very easy to have, and it's very simple to do. So you use your basic pattern and you put it on a new piece of paper. And what you do is you trace the side seam, you trace the mid back, and you trace the dart. And then you can take that off. And what I first always like to do is to lower the mid front of the waistline with 2 centimeters. Then you get a bit of a curve, and usually with most fabrics it fits more nicely to your waist. So then you cut this top part off. Then what I did, I added 10 centimeters to the mid front, and that is for the overlap, and you do that of course for the left and for the right part of the pattern. And that goes on straight down to the end, of course. Then for the side seam, you see this was the line of my basic pattern, but I'm gonna extend it from about the hip width in a straight line to the hemline. And because this is a longer line like this, you must make sure that the length of your skirt in the mid is the same as the length on the side seam, and that means it will be, the hem will go curved up more to the side seam. So just measure out how long this is and just take that all the way to the side seam. And then this is your pattern part for the left and for the front part. And then for the back part, it will be the same, only easier. Just put it on a new piece of paper, make the length that you want. Again, tracing the side seam and elongate it to the length that you want, flaring it out, so not going straight down but going more wide. Again, lower that waistline with 2 centimeters in the middle and then make a curved line to the side seam and trace your 2 darts. And then you have your back pattern, and because we're gonna put this on the bias, I always like to have my pattern then in a hole, because you cannot put it on the fold. So then what I always do is I make sure that I have my paper doubled, that when I cut it out I have just one whole back pattern to put on the fabric. And what you also do for the front and for the back, once you have cut off that piece on the waistline, is you make an extra strip of fabric of 3 centimeters wide, all the width of the top of your pattern for the facing. And you, as I said, do that for the back part, but also for the 2 front parts. And then for the pockets, you draw a rectangle of 20 centimeters high and 12 centimeters wide. And then you cut that in 2 pieces at 6 centimeters of this part. So 6 centimeters, 40 centimeters, then you have 2 parts. And that will make your pocket insert. If you like your pockets bigger, you can make them wider or higher or whatever you like. This will give a rather little insert for your hands. So if you really want to use your pocket, I would advise to make yours bigger. But because my pattern isn't really that wide, I cannot make bigger pockets, because then it will be too much on the pattern. It doesn't look that nice. But if you want to, certainly do that. And then for the front part we need 2 parts, of course, so then I found it safest to measure out that I fold in the corner, that I have enough for both the patterns to lay them next to each other, and then cut them out and again mark where your dart will be. So now we're gonna sew our darts. And if you're not familiar with sewing darts, I have a special tutorial about that. I have put that in my specials playlist, and I will also leave it linked down below in the description box so that you can watch that if you don't really know how to do it, because you can just make a triangle, but it's nicer to do it the right way. And what you do is you have marked the top part, you mark the bottom. I always take the bottom part just going all the way through the fabric, then fold the marks on the top together and pin them on top of each other. It's very slippery with satin, so really find the right mark. And then you pull on the pin on the bottom, and then you have the right fold here, and then you're gonna sew that down. And do that for both the darts in the front pieces and the 4 darts in the back part. When you've sewn all the darts in, make sure you iron them down to the middle, so all the pieces go to the middle like this, and iron them nice and flat. And then you lay your front pieces on top of your back piece, right sides together, of course. And we're gonna sew both the side seams. And if you want to make pockets in the side seam, do that first now, and watch the tutorial if you like. That I will link down below, that I made before. Oh, and the funny thing is, when I iron this fabric, it gives a smell of cotton candy. And I don't know why, I don't know what it is, but whatever piece I iron down, it smells like cotton candy. And for the side seam on the left side, make sure you leave an opening around 1.5 centimeters from the top, so that you can put your straps through. Leave that opening there, make a back stitch at the beginning and at the end, so that it won't rip open when you put the string in between. And if you want to sew it all down and then seam rip it, be very careful, because when you seam rip satin, you can very quickly pick up a thread of the satin, and then you will get a whip. I don't know what it's called, in Dutch it's a haal, and then you get a whole whip here along the fabric. So just try to sew down and backstitch, and here start again, backstitch, and sew the rest of the seam. That's more safe. The side seams are sewn. Make sure you press them flat very nicely. And then what I did, I put some interfacing onto the facing for the top of the skirt. And I know that you should make your interfacing not on the seam allowance, but I always do, because then it is attached in the seam and it stays put better. You don't do that, when you just iron it on just on the pattern piece, then often in the wash it gets loose and it gets in between the fabric, and I don't like that. So I know you shouldn't do it like this, but I always do it just also on the seam allowance. And because this interfacing is not really stiff, it just gives some more grip for your facing. It isn't really a problem when you also iron it on the seam allowances. So I did it for the front facings and for the back. Then what you do is you sew the side seams together just by putting the right sides, this is my side seam, right sides together, and just sew all across for both. And then you put them onto the top of your skirt, just pin them on all around and sew that on. And I also prepared my straps or my ties. I fold them double, I iron them down, and then I fold it in the seam allowances. And you can also just fold them right sides together and then sew that on and then put them right side out. But what I noticed often with satin, because it's so slippery, when you put it right side out, sometimes it gets a little bit twisted or wrinkled, no, not wrinkled, but that it's not really a nice straight line. And often I don't mind. For example, I did it for the white satin blouse, and I like that when the ties of the collar were a bit twisted. Sometimes it's a really nice effect, but now I really want to try to get it as straight as possible. So I don't do it right side together and then putting it right side out. I leave the right side to the outside, I press down the mid seam, and I fold it in the seam allowance, and I top stitch it here. And when you do that first, you can already now put them in between the front parts, in between the facing and the pattern part here. And you can already sew that down. Make sure that you leave enough seam allowance so that you can hem this part later on. So don't stitch too close to the edge. And you can do that for both sides. You can also do that later, than just do the top part and not already this. Just do this when you're finishing the hemline. sewed on the facing. I pressed it down very well. If you want, you can top stitch it, but when you've seen more of my satin sewing classes, then you know that I don't like top stitching on satin because I think it ruins a bit the nice shine texture of it. So I will leave it like this and just hand sew the facing onto some of the parts, the side seams and some of the darts, and then it will be attached very nicely. I already put my my ties in between, so that's finished. And now what I will do, because I don't like the top stitching, I don't really like to top stitch to hem normally the front parts, so I will use some, I think it's called in English press and bond or something. It's a sort of iron-on tape with which you can glue on your hemline. I'm not sure if it's going to work on this. I have done it before, but I was not really pleased with it, because when you wash your garment, it will often go loose on some places and then you have a problem. You have to do it again or have to rip it all off. So I'm not really a fan of it, but now I just want to try it again and see if it works for this. If not, then I will just hem it normally and then I'll have stitching on the outside. It's not a problem, but I'd rather have it looking like this, just nice, plain, shiny. And I think the other problem will be, because this is not cotton, you have to press it on with a cloth on top, and it means that you cannot see your hem. And I already pressed it in a bit, but it will always shift and do when you want to put on your press and bond. So I'm not sure if it's going to work. I'm not sure if it will look nice, but if not, you can also remove it and then you can just top stitch it. So I'm just going to try and I'll let you know at the end result if it worked for me or if I'm going to change it in just a normal top stitch. So I hem this front part, the left and the right part of the front part. You can also then hem your bottom the same way with the press and bond, or just by making a small hem, small rolled hem, and then top stitching it. I think for the hem, the bottom hem, I will just make a rolled hem. I think that will be more nice than doing it with the press and bond, but I'm gonna try it for this. And then the only thing we have to do is make the pockets, and I'll show you right on. So the press and bond part was not a success. I did it on the other hem on the front part and I don't like how it looks. So this part I will just top stitch it down. I have no choice because I want it to look nice, and I don't like how it looks with the press and bond. And the good thing is you can very easily remove it by just putting a damp cloth, a wet cloth on top of it, and press it down, and then you can just remove it. So luckily that is not a problem. So I'm gonna just top stitch the other front part. And for the hem, I will do, as I said, a rolled hem, but I will do it like you do it with a chiffon or organza or something. So just not rolling it in and then top stitching it, but just rolling it in once. So folding it once, very small, 1/2 centimeter at the max, and then sew that down. Then cut the rest of the seam allowance as close to your stitching as you can, and then folding it in again and top stitching again. The nice thing of this is that you don't get bulky up, because we have a rather curved hemline, and often when you just make a normal rolled hem, then sometimes you will get this. Can you see that between my fingers? You get, your stitching is going through, but you get here bulky because you have more fabric here on top of your hem than on the bottom. And I don't like it when I get pleats here on my hem. So I'm just gonna do it like this, folding it a little bit, sewing it down, cutting off the excess, and then folding it twice and top stitching it again. And then usually you get a very nice and crisp hemline. Now for the pockets, make sure first you finish all the edges with a zigzag stitch or an overlock stitch. And I did it with my sewing machine, and I never use it for this because I always use my serger, and it's really, you see my rough edges, but I don't have this color of thread for my serger, and I didn't want it with black, but it looks very rough. But you won't see it later on when it's finished, but I don't like it. But now, try to do it as nice as you can. Make sure you have the shine all to the good side, because you will see, I think when I switch this on, it will change for color. I don't know if you can see it, but I see it very well. And what you do is you put the smaller parts on top of the bigger parts. And then what you do is you sew the outside 2 centimeters down. So you make here a seam of 2 centimeters and on this side a seam of 2 centimeters. And make your seam allowance rather wide, so I'll make mine around 1.5 centimeters. And you do that for both your pieces. And the nice thing is when you open that up later on, then the sides are closed and this is open when you put your seam allowance up and down. I will show you later on when we've sewn this down. So now when you've sewn the top part onto the back part of the pocket, you iron open that seam. And that is what you normally would do when you have a side seam or a back seam or whatever. You have it like this, you open up that seam. And the nice thing when you do that, when you flip it over to the right side, then you have a very nice heel insert for your pocket. And it looks very nice, it looks very polished, but it is just simple by iron opening the seam. And then you get this. And then what I always do is I make a template out of my pocket pattern. If you have your pocket pattern on some cardboard, some thin cardboard, you can use that too, but I always make my patterns on just packing paper. So I make a template out of some cardstock. And then you iron the side seams over that template. And then what you get when you take your template out, you have really nice crisp lines so that you can sew on your pocket without any problem. And the nice thing is also when you use it for the other one, you have just the same, exactly the same size of your pocket, because when you have to fold in your seam allowances yourself, it will be very difficult to get it nice and crisp and also get exactly the same size as your other pocket. And this is a really simple way to do that. Just iron on the seams and then you can sew it down on your skirt. And the best way to do that is put on your skirt and see where to place your pockets, because for some body types it's nice when you put your pockets more high. For others it's better to put them more lower or more to the side seam. So just put your skirt on, take some pins with you and see watch in the mirror what is the best place for you to put on your back pockets. And when you've done that, then hem the skirt if you haven't done that yet, and then you're totally done. This is the skirt, really nice bright color, very flowy, very airy because of the wrap. I really like wrap dresses and wrap skirts because they're just easy to put on. You can put them as tight as you want, and it's nice and flowy and airy. And I really like the pockets. I hope you can see it. I will try to make a close-up in the thumbnail. I'm really a fan of these pockets. They're very easy to make, as you saw. But it looks really nice and it looks complicated, but it really is not. But I like how it looks, and you can use them if you want to, but I just have them for fun on the back. I like when there's strange things on the back of things, and that's this too. What I didn't like was the press and bond, and I kept them on so that you can see how it looks, because it looks kind of bumpy and wrinkly, and it is stiff because of course it's a kind of interfacing that you iron on. And now this is not flowy anymore, and I don't know if I can decently let you see the other side. Maybe you can see this is flowy, this is stiff. So I wanted to show you. I will take it out and just top stitch it, and then I like the result more because then I get what I have here on the inside, and I wish I had it done the press and bond first on the inside and not on the outside part, but well, I already did it, so no problem. What I also like and dislike is the hem, because the way I did it now is very good to do, very nice to do. You get a really nice result, and it's not really that much more work. Actually, it's not even more work than when you make a normal hem. But the only thing is, I don't know if you can see it, it is not that flowy anymore, same as the press and bond. This fabric is very flowy, but you can see maybe that the hem isn't really following me now. It will get better when you wash it, but of course I haven't washed it yet, so it will get better. But I really like how this hemline looks. It's neat, it's clean, it's very nicely made, and that's why I prefer this one over doing a normal walled hem, because then you always get some bunching up, and I really don't like it. People won't see it, but you know I don't like it when there are things on the garments that I make that I'm myself not glad about, and that's why I just want to do it that I'm really happy with what I made, and that's this hemline too. Maybe you saw that when I sewed on the pockets that I used my walking foot, and I know most people don't have a walking foot. I must say, in the 40 years that I'm sewing, it's the third time that I used it, and all the times was only with making bathing suits, because that fabric sometimes doesn't go well with your sewing machine. I never used it before on satin, but because my sewing machine was not really happy with this fabric now, you may know that a few weeks ago I had really problems with my sewing machine. I had to take it away to have it repaired, and from then I have issues with the tightness of the threads, and already the finishing part, the zigzag part of the pockets, it didn't work well at all. And because I really want the pockets to look nice, I thought, well, I'll take my walking foot out, and with that I will put my pockets on. But you really don't need it. As I said, I've never used it before, certainly not on satin, so you really don't need a walking foot, but I had it, so I thought, okay, I'll be sure to make it nice and clean, and I'll use it. Then I'm really happy with the result, and otherwise I would maybe take it off and do it again, and I wasn't really feeling that. So I'm happy with the result. Now I'm just going to change this part here in the front and give it a just nice top stitch, and then I think this is really a nice summery skirt. So I hope you liked this tutorial. If you have any questions, as always, leave them down below in the description box, and I'll get back to you and help you out. If you have any suggestions what you want me to make, or what you would like but don't know how to make it, just let me know, and maybe I can make a video out of it and help you out with that. And again, I'll see you next week, next Sunday, with a new sewing class. And thank you so much for watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe, and we'll be happy to have you in our sewing family. So thank you so much, and see you next Sunday. Bye.